The story of humanity is written not only in books, but in fire, stone, and dreams. From the dawn of our existence, every step has shaped the world we live in today. This is not just history, it is the story of us. From caves lit by fire in the year 300,000 BCE to glowing digital screens in the year 2025, humanity has always been on a journey of survival, meaning, and progress. And so our story begins. 300,000 years ago, in the heart of Africa, a new kind of being appeared on Earth, Homo sapiens. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest. Compared to the beasts of 300,000 BCE, the towering mammoths, the fierce saber-toothed cats, and the relentless packs of hyenas, early humans seemed fragile. Their lives balanced on the edge of survival. They lived in small bands, no more than a few dozen, bound by blood, necessity, and trust. Each sunrise was uncertain. A hunt could bring nourishment, or it could bring death. The rains could feed the land, or flood it. Drought could stretch for months, leaving rivers cracked and dry. Storms could sweep away the little they had. Hunger was constant, fear was near, and every day was a battle against nature's merciless hand. Their shelters were temporary, branches woven into crude huts, caves borrowed from stone, or simply the open sky. At night, they huddled close, listening to the growls of predators echoing through the darkness. Lions prowled the plains, leopards stalked the shadows, and crocodiles lurked in the rivers. To be human in 300,000 BCE was to be vulnerable. And yet, within these fragile beings was something extraordinary, something no claw, fang, or muscle could rival. They carried the power of thought. They could imagine. They remembered the paths to water during dry seasons. They observed the migration of animals, and they planned hunts together. They shared food, cared for the injured, and raised children not alone, but as a community. Their strength was not in their bodies, but in their minds and in each other. It was here, in 300,000 BCE, that the true spark of humanity was lit. A spark that would grow into fire, into language, into cities, and into civilizations. The dawn of humanity was not a grand moment, but a fragile beginning, a species standing at the edge of extinction, yet destined to transform the Earth. By 200,000 years ago, humans had begun to shape their world with tools. Stones were sharpened into blades, and with them came new power. They cut hides, carved wood, and built stronger shelters. A spear tipped with stone became a weapon that turned the hunter into the hunted's equal. For the first time, the human mind was stronger than claws or teeth. Then came fire. In 200,000 BCE, fire was no longer a force of fear, it became a companion. Flames gave warmth during cold nights, light during endless darkness, and safety from predators lurking nearby. Fire transformed food, making it softer, tastier, and safer to eat. Families gathered around campfires, their voices carried by the crackle of flames. In those circles, stories, songs, and laughter were born. By the time fire lit the nights of 200,000 BCE, humanity had created more than survival. They had created the first foundation of civilization. Between 70,000 and 40,000 BCE, humanity unlocked its greatest gift, language. With words, people could share warnings, pass down wisdom, and dream together. Knowledge was no longer trapped in one mind. It could be carried across generations. This was also the birth of culture. In caves across Europe and Asia, walls were painted with hunts, animals, and symbols of belief. Bones and stones were carved into ornaments and tools of ritual. Music filled the air, flutes carved from bone, rhythms beaten on drums. Stories were told not only of survival, but of spirits, ancestors, and the mysteries of the world. By 40,000 BCE, humanity was more than a species struggling to live. We had become storytellers, creators, and dreamers. Culture gave meaning to survival, and imagination gave humanity a soul. Around 10,000 BCE, humanity stood at the threshold of a revolution unlike any before. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors had lived as wanderers, moving endlessly across grasslands, forests, and deserts. They followed the seasons, hunted wild animals, and gathered fruits, roots, and seeds. Life was uncertain. The land provided, but it also demanded constant movement. No place was ever truly home. But in the fertile valleys of the Middle East, in lands we now call Mesopotamia, something changed. People noticed that seeds, when dropped, would grow again. Grain sprouted where it had fallen, and with patience, food could be made to appear not by chance, but by design. By 10,000 BCE, the first fields of wheat and barley were carefully tended by human hands. The earth itself had become a partner in survival. With farming came another transformation, the domestication of animals. Sheep and goats, once hunted in the wild, were tamed and kept in herds. Cattle provided milk, meat, and strength to plow the land. No longer did humans need to chase food endlessly across the plains. Food could be grown and raised at the doorstep of the village. And so, villages were born. By the banks of rivers and streams, communities built homes of mud, clay, and stone. Crops needed water, and so humans learned to dig channels and control the flow of rivers. Life became more stable. Children could grow up in one place. Families no longer packed up each season to follow the hunt. For the first time in history, humanity had permanent homes. This agricultural revolution changed everything. Food surpluses allowed populations to grow larger than ever before. With extra food came time. Time to experiment, time to invent, time to create. Pottery was shaped to store grain. Looms wove cloth from plant fibers and wool. Tools improved, sharpened not just for hunting, but for farming. But perhaps the greatest change was psychological. Humanity was no longer at the mercy of nature alone. In 10,000 BCE, for the first time, we shaped nature itself. The wandering hunter-gatherer had become the farmer, the builder, the planner. And from this simple yet profound revolution, the seeds of civilization were sown. By 5000 BCE, the quiet farming villages of earlier centuries had grown into something far greater, the first cities. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, places like Uruk and Ur rose with walls of mud brick and bustling markets. Along the Nile, Egyptian towns flourished, their lives tied to the yearly flood. In the Indus Valley, carefully planned cities appeared, with straight roads, drainage systems, and homes built in order. With cities came writing, at first simple marks to track trade and harvests, but soon evolving into laws, contracts, and stories. Temples and palaces towered above the people, symbols of both faith and power. Kings claimed their rule was given by the gods, and armies enforced their will. For the first time, humanity lived not just in families or villages, but in vast communities bound by law, labor, and belief. In 5000 BCE, the age of civilization had begun. Organized, ambitious, and restless, the city was humanity's new invention, and it would change the course of history forever. Around 3000 BCE, the Bronze Age began. Copper and tin were forged into stronger tools and weapons, reshaping farming, trade, and war. Civilizations thrived, linked by trade routes stretching across seas and deserts. But by 1200 BCE, a new material changed everything: iron. Harder, sharper, and more abundant than bronze, it fueled the rise of empires. Iron swords and chariots thundered across battlefields. Kingdoms clashed, cities fell, and legends were born. Between 3000 and 1000 BCE, humanity's destiny was written in metal. This was the age of warriors, conquerors, and rulers whose names would echo for centuries. Between 500 BCE and 500 CE, the world entered its classical age. In Greece, philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle questioned the nature of truth and justice. Democracies and theaters flourished, and stories of gods and heroes were told. Rome built aqueducts, roads, and an empire that stretched across continents. Laws were codified, armies marched, and the Pax Romana shaped centuries. In India, the teachings of Hinduism and Buddhism guided millions, while epic tales like the Mahabharata and Ramayana inspired generations. In China, Confucius and Laozi shaped philosophy, while dynasties built great walls and flourishing trade routes. From 500 BCE to 500 CE, humanity created systems of thought, government, and art that still shape the modern world today. It was an age not only of empires, but of ideas. When Rome fell, the Middle Ages began, lasting from 500 to 1500 CE. Across Europe, castles rose, knights swore oaths of loyalty, and kingdoms fought endless wars. Religion guided nations, inspiring pilgrimages and crusades. Trade routes like the Silk Road connected Europe, Africa, and Asia, carrying silk, spices, and knowledge. While Europe endured plagues and wars, other regions thrived. The Islamic Golden Age, from the 8th to 13th centuries, preserved and expanded science, medicine, and philosophy. Libraries in Baghdad and Cordoba became centers of learning. In monasteries, monks copied manuscripts, keeping ancient wisdom alive. Between 500 and 1500 CE, humanity endured hardship but also sowed the seeds of progress. The Middle Ages were an age of both shadow and light, setting the stage for rebirth. Between the 15th and 17th centuries, humanity set its eyes on the unknown. For thousands of years, the oceans had been boundaries, vast, dangerous, and mysterious. But now, they became highways of discovery. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail across the Atlantic, believing he had reached Asia, but instead finding the shores of a new world. Vasco da Gama rounded the Cape of Good Hope in 1498, opening a sea route to India and its spices. Ferdinand Magellan's fleet circled the globe, proving that Earth was far larger and far more connected than anyone had imagined. Europe's kingdoms competed fiercely. Spain, Portugal, England, France, and the Netherlands sent fleets into the unknown, driven by gold, glory, and God. New trade routes linked continents. The Americas, Africa, and Asia were drawn into an emerging global network of goods, ideas, and power. Sugar, silver, and spices flowed across the seas, along with devastating consequences. Diseases carried by ships wiped out entire populations in the New World. The transatlantic slave trade tore millions from Africa, fueling empires at the cost of human suffering. Yet alongside conquest and tragedy came new knowledge. Maps were redrawn. New foods, potatoes, tomatoes, maize, and chocolate, changed diets across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Sailors returned with stories of lands, peoples, and wonders never before imagined. The age of exploration, from the 15th to the 17th century, was both triumph and tragedy. It expanded horizons, connected continents, and reshaped the destiny of humanity. For the first time in history, the entire world was bound together by sails, by trade, and by the unquenchable human desire to explore. From 1300 to 1700 CE, the world awoke. The Renaissance brought a rebirth of art, science, and learning. Michelangelo painted ceilings that touched the heavens. Leonardo da Vinci sketched inventions centuries ahead of his time. Shakespeare gave voice to human emotions that still resonate today. Science broke ancient chains. Galileo pointed his telescope at the stars, while Newton described the laws of motion. Explorers sailed across oceans, connecting continents and reshaping maps. Then came the Enlightenment, when philosophers questioned kings and traditions, demanding freedom, reason, and progress. Between 1300 and 1700 CE, humanity began to believe that knowledge itself could transform the world. From 1700 to 1900 CE, the Industrial Revolution reshaped daily life. Steam engines powered factories, spinning machines produced cloth, and railways crisscrossed nations. Cities swelled with workers, and machines amplified human strength. Inventions poured forth: the light bulb, the telegraph, the camera. Ships crossed oceans faster, connecting global trade. But progress had its cost. Harsh labor, pollution, and inequality created new struggles. Still, the Industrial Revolution between 1700 and 1900 CE marked a turning point. Humanity had entered the age of industry, invention, and unstoppable change. From 1900 to the present, change has come faster than in all the centuries before combined. Cars and airplanes shrank distances. Radios and televisions brought voices and images into homes. 2 world wars scarred the Earth, yet science pushed forward, splitting the atom, sending humans to the moon, and mapping the code of life. By the late 1900s, computers emerged. At first massive machines, they soon became personal devices, and then mobile tools in the palm of the hand. The internet connected billions, creating a digital web of instant knowledge and communication. Today, in the 21st century, humanity lives in the digital age. Technology shapes our work, our connections, and even our dreams. From 1900 to now, the pace of change has been relentless. And yet, the story is not complete. The next chapter of humanity remains unwritten, and it belongs to us.